Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So I got a request for a video from one of my audience members, Paul. He wrote and said, hey, can you give some tips on where to find some of these max rolled firearms based gear items, and I replied and said this is a high request because even I myself find it hard to get some of the max rolled items that I do want in the game. But I do have some pointers that have helped me. Now this is my PlayStation character. So when I joined the LCN clan here on PlayStation, a lot of the clan members basically ran me through a bunch of missions and dropped a bunch of gear to kind of set me up for the raids. And so I have an all red build, but it's not a maxed out red build. If anything, it's very far from that. But it was able to take me through multiple raids and has done a good job so far. So the very first thing I want to say is don't let the quality of your builds basically discourage you, because it's a process. Part of the end game grind in the division, as much as many will don't like it, is about getting your stats to where it needs to be. Now what's funny is many people who say they don't like it played the Division 1, where I almost never got any max rolled gear without using the optimization station or even the recalibration station, which in the Division 1, the recalibration station is not as good. Some people say the optimization station from the Division 1 is better, but then the gear drops and the opportunities to get specific gear in the Division 2 kind of counters that. I mean, you can basically go on a map and, look around and say, oh, this is dropping here and go farm there. You can go to the summit and pretty much select what gear you want to drop, though that may not necessarily be something a lot of people don't want to engage in, but it is there as an option. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is using targeted loot. I mean, I know everybody knows this, but there's no other way to kind of find the specific items you want, because targeted loot, what it does is it basically scales down the wide range of possibilities of what you're going to be getting and giving you items within that class. And then the challenge too is, depending on your playstyle, whether you're a solo player or a group player, this can really influence how fast you're able to put together or get the gear that it is that you're looking for. Now, why I say this is, a lot of players like to run solo, and, one of the things about you as a solo player is you're subject to your own RNG. I get it. For your own pride's sake, you want to knock out the content on your own terms. But if you want to get gear, the best thing to do is expose yourself to a higher probability of gear drops. So doing activities that do have a high matchmaking frequency. Bounties do have a high matchmaking frequency because they're quick XP, people run in and get those items. Sure, they don't drop a lot of max rolled items, but once in a while you see that that's actually a thing. The summit has matchmaking, which you can even select the gear you want, and you can expose yourself to other agents dropping items. Weekly legendaries. This is also a very big deal. A lot of players will come in and play the weekly legendary, get the exotics. Maybe they're gathering them for exotic parts. Maybe they're looking for a better version of an exotic that they already have. This is also another way for players to potentially drop a max rolled item that they have a duplicate of. And even while you're in those groups, you can always just ask. You could say, hey, does anybody have a duplicate of this that they don't need? And you just never know. You've opened yourself up for that. And I get it. Everybody wants their RNG to be really great, but that's one thing that the game has actually set as its own unique point, is that it's going to have a crushing RNG even from the first game, even till date. And so for those of us who maybe get tired of it, we'll probably drop the game at some point and say, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to sit here and wait to be able to max out all my builds. And then some of us, we're just okay with just, carefully and over time playing the game to the point where we get those max rolls that we do need. And so these are some of the ways that I believe that you're able to get some of the items that you want. And then pretty much prioritizing ways to be able to get a bunch of caches. One of the things about this, these season reruns is they've provided the opportunity for you to be able to get some really solid items out of them. And so the more you're getting items roll out of these caches, the better you're going to be seeing your gear. Now, again, another thing that a lot of people kind of miss out on or ignore is the vendors. Even as of right now, the vendors have a pair of gloves that I do like and I'm going to purchase. If you look at these are the firm Handshake gloves. And if you look at it, it's basically maxed rolled. I mean, sure, the bottom slot, you can go change it to crit chance or crit damage or whatever it is. And I get it. If the bottom slot was actually rolled better, the top slot, you could potentially have changed that to a skill tier and used it with, maybe a skill-based build or whatever. But hey, if you're trying to run an SMG build, that does have a means, or, maybe you're running something that has a means of dealing a status effect, perhaps, then this is definitely one of those items that you definitely want to get and prioritize. So do not overlook the vendors. They sometimes will carry some things that are actually pretty good. And these are ways that you can pretty much acquire some of the things that you want. And so other than that, I mean, all I'll say is, yes, higher difficulty using what do they call them? The directives. These have also been proven to allow for you to get better drops, but it doesn't seem like they really do make a big difference. In fact, what I've decided to do is I've decided to scale my world tier to challenging, which is something I usually play on heroic, but I've decided to scale it down to challenging, where I can actually farm much faster and then expose myself to more drops. As the probability goes, the more gear that drops for me, I mean, the more the likelihood I'm going to see something that is maxed out. I mean, sure, maybe I have a higher potential of getting maxed out items on heroic, but the enemies are also a little, much tougher to kill. If you're playing open world events, then you have more enemies spawning and, more enemies getting into other things that you're doing. If you're doing a control point, all of a sudden you have some random patrol or some random resource convoy that comes in and then makes things a lot more. Whereas if I'm playing on challenging, I can knock out the entire control point, go into that room, the supply room, and get more items. So how you farm, how you prioritize, how you expose yourself to, gear drops, these are ways that you can start, getting gear that you want. And then don't forget your recalibration, and don't forget your optimization. Now, yes, the big stigma that I've seen with the division for the most part is there usually is a rouse to dismiss everything. Almost every time anything that's new drops in the game, it's very easy to find, that system or whatever it is get dismissed instantly. But nonetheless, I have seen a lot of agents where I've actually looked at their gear, and their gear was max rolled, and they basically just leverage that slow, patient approach of optimizing their items to make them maxed out. And in many cases, sure, maybe they didn't have to do too much work, but optimization items and optimization strategies are there to help you leverage gear that is already good, existing gear. And all you have to do is just basically crank up the remaining finer points and be able to get that gear to be a very strong piece of item. Some items are just, they're just really weird the way they drop. They won't drop, enough of they won't drop enough of the rolls that you need, and so you have to go in there and you have to basically deal with all of those issues and basically try to get the gear item to be the best item that it can be, if you get what I mean. So these are some of the strategies that I do know. Sometimes you could just roll an attribute on there, but then sometimes you have to roll an attribute and then also optimize. So it could get really painstaking, but it's part of the grind, it's part of the game. I wouldn't let it be a discouraging factor, but then still just continue to put your foot on the gas pedal and you'll be able to find the build that you're looking for. And then finally, to top it all off, this is something I've also asked a lot of 3,000 shade level, 4,000, 5,000 shade level players, is how they get their rolls to be so good. Now, on the PlayStation, on PC, I know a couple or more than a couple of, division agents that used to run streams with me, and I used to show their builds on streams, and they had like the best gear in every category of their build, like everything maxed out. And this was months ago. What am I saying months ago? This was all the way back in the fall of last year, if you even ask me. And I used to ask them then, like, yo, how do you guys get all these builds? And they've told me the only thing that gets you these builds and gets you these rolls is just taking your time and farming the game. And I think that can only be achieved if you just enjoy the journey, because if you make it all about the gear, it becomes a chore and you'll eventually drop the game. And so this is something that I'll also say to be cautious about as well. That's pretty much my little, spill on this issue. I mean, I hope this was helpful. I know it's probably not something that anybody would have wanted to hear. There is no easy way about this game in getting your gear. People say, oh, the game is so easy now. Well, it's easy because you can slap everything, but if you wanted to go for max out gear, it's not as easy. You have to spend the time either running the game or running with people who already have a whole bunch of stuff and they're able to kind of hook you up. But nonetheless, there are multifaceted areas of difficulty in the Division game. And, this is one of them that a lot of players either have to deal with or don't bother facing at all. Talk to you guys in another video. Thank you so much. Peace out.